Aloha and welcome to Inside the Writer's Studio. I'm your host, Eila Algood, and I am excited today to be bringing Cecilia Johansen to you from California. Cece's going to read something that she's been working on, a piece of her writing, and then we're going to follow that up with Talk Story. Welcome, Cece.
Thank you, Eila. It's great to see you, and I'm happy to be on the show with you. Just wanted to talk about my latest book, which is Kimsey Rise, A Family of Farmers, and I will be reading a short piece from it. It's actually chapter 20, and it's called Solomon, and the year is 1772. From the early years, a strong militia had been formed in each of the 13 colonies for protection on the western border. After the French and Indian War, Colonel George Washington became the commander of Virginia's militia, and 16-year-old Solomon Kimsey was the first of the family to announce he wanted to join the fighting force. His father, Benjamin, with iron determination, was against it. No, was his unequivocal answer, and for 3 days he turned his back on his son, avoiding a certain struggle. Finally, he knew he needed to speak. We are Baptists, preaching peace, and as such it is our duty to stay away from the disturbances that surround us, he said passionately. Benjamin could see that same passion staring back at him. On the forge, with the hammer of his son's insistence, he began to understand, remembering his own strong desire for the fight in his Scottish homeland, a desire to serve the cause and protect their very way of life. It was taken away, and no amount of unrest between men here in this new land would take away the new life that they had set for themselves. Knowing full well it would not help, he said, "I know how you feel." "What do you know of the battle, Father?" Solomon's accusation stung him. "You profess religious peace, but you allowed yourself to be beaten and thrown in jail. Why did you not defend yourself?" Tears welled up in his eyes. "I was ashamed of you." He ran from the house. Benjamin was dismayed that his son had kept his emotions hidden for so long, but did not want a confrontation. All his old wounds opened. All the old fighting words and songs and the pipes spurring the clans to defeat the German George II and his soldiers came back to haunt him. Now there was a third on the throne, and he could see what was happening to their Virginia and to the other colonies. He read the stories and saw the fight coming, and it scared him. With neighbors torn apart by quarreling around the heat of his stove, the possibility of war had been a daily occurrence discussed in his mercantile. The daily necessity to pray for peace became more intense, and he spoke openly about it in his weekly sermons. In the yard, Solomon stopped at the bottom of an old walnut tree that he and his twin brother Hiram liked to climb. Where had the time gone, Benjamin thought. Solomon was trying to be the man his father wanted, but could not understand if he did not know the facts. How can I tell him? His stomach churned. He had never told of any of his sons his history. Benjamin limped to his son's side. Solomon continued arguing, determined to win over his father. That is what the militia means, to defend ourselves against the savages who are ravaging our citizens in the western lands, to kill them and, yes, that is part of it, Benjamin interrupted, grappling with his proposed words and tightly gripping the cane's head to support his weakened ankle. He continued, our colony's Bill of Rights that we need a well-regulated militia, and it is our right to keep and bear arms and defend ourselves by repelling invasions and to enforce the laws of our Virginia. Solomon was astounded by his father's knowledge and sudden inflamed passion. Yes, I keep up with the news, and it appears that a war will soon be at our doorstep. My son, do you know how I got my injury? Mother told us you broke your ankle on the ship. That is what we wanted you to know. Innocent as he was, Solomon looked at his father with the same saucer-like eyes Benjamin remembered when the wee bairn, sitting on his knee, hung on his every word. Grape shot hit my ankle in the Battle of Culloden Moor in 1746 in Scotland. Solomon was stunned. You fought in a war? He asked, not quite believing what he heard. It was a battle that ended the Scots way of life forever and our Clan Mackenzie name. Benjamin hung his head as scenes of the smoke-filled day and starry night a quarter of a century earlier arose in his mind. Each was shared with the young man before him. You cannot know the anger I felt after the horrible devastation heaped on our homeland. Scotland was just another of England's conquests, and brutal tyranny continued punishment for us for many years afterward. Your grandfather Robert and Uncle Duncan, just a wee child, were murdered while they were innocently plowing the fields. Your grandmother Mary died on that prisoner ship. Your mother and I, your brother Ian, and your uncles Jamie, Alex, and Charles were all sold as slaves in Baltimore. Benjamin's chest heaved with emotion. Brutal, devastating tyranny, innocents murdered, prisoners sold as slaves. The hateful words thundered in Solomon's ears. A few crickets chirped, filling the awkward silence between father and son. Yellow light from the opening front door of their home spread across the grass and revealed tears on Benjamin's face. Aggie's dark silhouette appeared in the frame. Solomon saw his father cry for the first time in his short life and felt the color of aroused anger drain from his own face. I'm sorry, Father. I did not know. And we were Mackenzies, he pondered. With weighty metal, Benjamin said, we arose from the ashes of our homeland, and we will arise from whatever will come. You may go if it's your heart's desire. And he limped back to the warmth of the house to his dearly beloved wife. A humble pie awaited on the table, and Benjamin's battlefield dirk sat beside Solomon's plate, the hide-covered grip emblazoned with the Mackenzie clan crest, Luceo non uro, I shine, not burn, a symbol of allegiance to the clan chiefs from the 11th century. Loyal, honorable, and tough as nails, battle-hardened warriors clashed in many of Scotland's battles.
Thank you so much, Cece. It's so nice to hear you read again. People don't know this, but I met you at Tutu's house. It must be close to 10 years ago, and I used to enjoy you bringing your work to the group, and it was always so unique. Your writing is unique, and the historical fiction that you're working on, that you've worked on, is so unique. So first of all, great to see you. Great to see your home and feel like we're almost there. We're almost visiting. Can you share with people a little bit about your writing history? Like when did you really consider yourself a writer or get into writing? And how did historical fiction come to want to be written by you?
I didn't know I was a writer until I met with you folks at Tutu's house, and you and John Holland and Dave Fouts and all of our good group really encouraged me to go forward with it. I was writing The Canoe Maker's Son at the time that my husband actually wanted to write. And of course, he died prior to us even getting started. So I was already starting reading to him, and historical fiction was just something I fell into thanks to him.
Yeah, that was such a powerful story. And for those who are watching that don't know what Tutu's house is, it's a place near where I live now and where you used to live in Waimea on the Big Island of Hawaii. And it was a place we could go and meet as a writers group, and it met every week, and anyone could come and go as they pleased. It was a 2-hour meeting, and it offered us an opportunity to read our written work and get feedback on it. And like you, I didn't consider myself a writer until I got involved with that group. because it was like a validation of something I had done, but I don't know, it was just like a hobby, right? I never thought of it seriously. So this particular story, where did it come from for you? Where did the idea come from?
Well, I had been immersed in Hawaiiana for such a long time, for about 30 years, with both of my husbands, who were both born on the Big Island. And it sort of came naturally that I was suddenly there in Hawaii, and it was very fulfilling. But after my second husband passed away, I sort of lost my identification.
Mm.
And I delved deeply into my ancestry, thanks to my brother and my niece, who have a very large site on ancestry.com. And I started doing research, and I discovered that we have an extensive background. There are Kimseys in just about every state of the Union here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite pleasing to me to see all these people. And so I just got the idea to start it.
And as you write, do you, I like people to hear about your process. Like, do you have like a whole, some people write in their heads, they have a whole picture and then they start writing, however, and some people just start and then let it come in. What's your process like?
Well, the process began with my father's aunt, very elderly lady that I met back in 1955 when we visited with her on Sunday afternoons. And she would tell my dad about these four brothers who fought in the Battle of Culloden Moor in Scotland. And they went to Lord Baltimore's colony. And so I had a basis already. And I started with that. I actually started to write this book back in the 90s, early 90s. And it just blossomed from there. And with the research and census records and prisoner records and, the battles and different things that happened during that time, it just led me forward after I wrote that first 88, 85 pages. And so by the time I finished The Canoe Maker's Son, I didn't know what to do. And I thought, well, I'll just bring this story to Tutu's house and see what everybody says. And that's kind of how it started for me.
Yes, I remember that. I remember the beginning of this. So it's wonderful for me to see it in its published format and to hear a piece of it. So it sounds to me like this is, based on some family stuff, and then you did some research and then kind of made a story out of all of, put it all in the pot and then made a story from it. Is that right?
Oh, yes, that's right. I have boxes of research, boxes of it. And, I didn't want to rewrite the Revolutionary War by any stretch of the imagination. So I just sort of glazed over it a bit with letters from the soldier Solomon. And eventually he's in the Revolutionary War. So it just started,
Where did the name Mackenzie come in? Was that a made up name or is that something in your history?
Well, for all the Kimseys out there who may look at me askew, the Mackenzie name, at least as far as my grand aunt was concerned, their name was actually Mackenzie. And they changed their name somewhere along the line. Nobody is sure where it happened. But my thought, well, they went to Ireland or they went to the colonies and they just spur of the moment just changed the name so they wouldn't be looked at as Scottish, especially in an English colony.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and so many people did that. So many people either changed their names or their names were changed for them when they came to the US way back, right? and still do, I'm sure.
Yes,
In your
yes.
process, so you started this book some years ago. What would you say is your favorite part of your writing process?
Favorite part. I'll start with the hardest part is the research. But my favorite part is just writing, just getting the idea and going with it, putting words together, scrambling them around, editing, re-editing. I love the whole process. It is so enjoyable to me.
So even when you're editing for your book where you have to, kind of reread and go over every little word, you enjoy that because that's part of kind of sculpting your story?
You know what it's like to edit.
I do. And
That's not.
I couldn't take on a novel because I would get bored having to reread it over and over and over again. So I admire you.
Well, I started in Hawaii with Susan Switzer. I don't know if you remember her, but was my first editor, and she edited John Holland's books as well. And after she did it, then I found a Gary Kimsey online, who turns out was my fifth cousin one time removed.
I've been watching a lot of British television, a lot of crime shows. And when you said Weebairn, I was like, yay, because it's so interesting to hear the language difference. Even though we're all English, there are phrases that are different, as an American and as a Scottish or English or in Great Britain. And I wondered, did you find a lot of that in your research? Different nuances to the language?
Yes, I did. And as I recall, in Tutu's house, and I think even you were one of them that suggested that that I use more of the language. And I went online about to look at is it Diana Gabaldon that writes the Scottish? I can't think of the name of it right now, but I believe it's her. She actually went to a coach for him to write in the Scottish style. And I remember you folks suggested that I do that, and I thought, well, it's a wee bit expensive to have that done. But yeah, I actually use quite a few phrases, that they spoke, and I had to be very careful, looking at the dictionary and making sure that I was using a word that was not used now, but wasn't used back in the 1700s. So
Yeah,
that was something else.
That's hard, yeah. Yeah, I imagine that's kind of challenging.
Yes.
So before we go, are you working on anything?
You know me, Eila. Yes, I am working on something. Actually, I found a couple of Kimseys in the 1850 California census in the gold mines as miners. And they're also, the same names are in the 1850 census later on that year in Missouri. So I have the feeling they left Missouri in 1849, came out to California to look for gold. And so I'm making a whole new story about that.
Wonderful. Well, we
It's
look
fun.
forward to it. Can you hold your book up one more time for everybody so they can see the name of it?
Yes, of course.
It's called Kimsey Rise, and I'm sure it's available everywhere. We won't do a big promo, but everyone can see it. And Cece, I want to thank you so much for being part of Inside the Writer's Studio today. And for folks who are watching, you can learn more about the Guild by going to www.hawaiiwritersguild.com. And if you're a Facebook person, there's also Hawaii Writers Guild Facebook page. Until next time, aloha all.